My work many times is like a tapestry, that it has different scenes and different narratives and different images that come together that describe a larger phenomena or a larger political condition. My name is Noa Yekutieli. I'm a visual artist based in Los Angeles. Welcome to my studio. I am a site-specific installation artist. I work in manual paper cutting. There's something about the technique of the manual paper cutting and the slow and intricate process of working that I feel that is very much needed for myself in today's high-paced world that we live in. In the process of the paper cutting, I kind of contemplate a lot about archaeology, about the human nature of destruction. Once I cut through the paper, I cannot go back and change it. It's kind of like permanent scars. In many ways, black and white, the positive and negative, these extremes, allow me to explore topics that aren't as absolute, that are more in the gray zone. In my work, I try to give various perspectives on the same scene and explore how different contexts affect the way we see the reality that is around us. I enjoy playing with roles of material, like what is supposed to be strong and steady, like cement, like stones, like bricks. Many times I try to bring out the fragility within them. And the paper cut that is a very day-to-day material, I enjoy transforming it into beauty or into almost a lace feeling of our reality. When the pandemic began, I just got back from a solo exhibition of mine in Bonn in Germany at Gisela Clement Gallery. People walk on a floor that is perfect layer of cement that slowly cracks under the footsteps and creates like this landscape of cracks. In the opening, the feeling of the surface breaking under our feet brought out very different responses from people. Like there was a woman that started crying, that it was very emotional. There were some that felt very uncomfortable standing on it, versus kids that would just like run on it and it would just like crack all around. And you really see the different emotional ways we deal with precious things in our life. Living most of my life in Israel and Palestine, the questions of land and belonging are definitely things that trouble my mind. And I feel that the element of change that I was referring to in holding space mostly dealt with the sense of belonging and what is land, what is a surface. So I decided to place this cement floor on the original floor of the gallery, pointing out the fact that also the original floor of the gallery is placed upon another surface of the gallery, which is placed on another surface of soil, trying to emphasize that there is no such thing as original habitat. There is no such thing as homeland. It's relevant in many political conflicts that we are encountering throughout history, and definitely in a melting pot place like America and like Israel. Questions of definition of origin are things that I kind of try to explore in my work in a more material-based aspect. In Fragmented Substance, which was an installation that I created in 2017 at the Eretz Israel Museum in Tel Aviv, it was a time that I was working a lot with physical reflection. Like I used kind of the surface of the frames to create reflection of the paper cuts. Even though the paper cuts that were hung from the ceiling reflected all on the glass, two people that were standing in the exact same place saw different perspectives of it. So even though sometimes we are in a given moment together and we're experiencing a similar experience, our perspectives upon it changes, not only between one and another, but also as we move along around the piece. My work many times is like a tapestry, that it has different scenes and different narratives and different images that come together that describe a larger phenomena or a larger political condition. When lockdown began in Los Angeles, I found myself trying to find a specific image of my studio that is locked down, that I don't have access to, as a metaphor of many other spaces that we don't have access to, and to work on it as pixels, as 20 by 20 centimeters of squares that I create paper cuts, and I don't see their overall array of the turnout of them. As I was working, slowly the work started spreading on all the walls of the room and the ceiling of the room, and kind of transforming the space into a different reality. The three-dimensionality of the flat paperwork started deforming the space, and this depth was created in the middle of a flat and normal wall. Those kinds of illusions are things that I was dealing with in this reality of like this deformation of what is true in today's world, and does it even matter at this point? And I kind of see this piece in a way like an archaeology site that has like different layers within it, spaces within spaces, and this mix of true and false and how they meet in one space. In 2019, I created a series of installations that the first one of them was Pedestal at Track 16 at the beginning of the year. That continued to a larger exhibition that was a series of 10 installations that I created at the Kunstverein in Augsburg in Germany that was titled Degrees of Separation. In this body of work, I explored the role of the pedestal. We usually look at the sculpture that is upon the pedestal, but there's these massive marble structures that are in the spaces that define not only what is seen, but also what height we see art in, what way is the proper way to view certain narratives. And I kind of wanted to take that pedestal and change the power dynamic of who shapes this history and who writes the history. And I flattened the three-dimensional pedestal into two-dimensional shadows almost of pedestals. And I wanted to reduce the power dynamic that we're used to and give voice to things that many times are discarded. So I started collecting debris from deconstructed buildings, from deconstructed homes. And so I take these bits and parts of our past, that structures that used to give us a sense of home or strength, or these very durable materials that are usually thrown away and put aside, and I kind of take that to kind of listen in a way to this material and to these fragments, and to create a different sense of belonging for them, a different sense of relationship, and I put them kind of on the pedestal. So by flattening the physical pedestal but placing the ruins on top of the pedestal, it was kind of a resistance to structure. I created both like floor pieces that were creating absent pedestals on the floor, mapping out patterns from the debris that I collected, viewing them as a portrait of a place, a more authentic portrait of a place. And so in Degrees of Separation, I also took these elements and kind of embedded them within the pedestal with the paper to show what voices and what narratives needed to be destroyed in order to create an assertive, clear narrative. Every narrative that is put out there many times needs to destroy a different narrative in order to form that structure and that clarity and that royalty almost of what is placed on a pedestal. I try to shift that power dynamic in my work. My work is really about details and about nuances, which I think that those are things that sometimes in today's world, and always actually throughout history, it was about answers and about defining things in a way that could be understood and passed on. And I think that there's something in that human pattern that I try to shift and I try to challenge.